Hello, everyone. My name is Simon. I was invited to a keynote here by the lovely people. The keynote I'm doing here is more about speaking what I've been doing, why am I here, why is a 54-year-old guy here speaking to so many people, and doing an introduction on the panel that is coming afterwards with my lovely colleagues. And the reason why I'm here, what I want to speak about is intellectual property and how do I treat it and why am I a manager today. All right. I'm living in Torgau, not very typical for for music industry, but my office is there. I've been growing up there. I'm happily married to my soulmate. She was actually a photographer of one of my bands. I met her in 2005, fell madly in love. She hated me until 2019, and then I got married, and now we're happily ever after. I'm an entrepreneur. I love cross-country skiing. I do a lot of good causes, like that guy over there that you see me. He's the manager of Iron Maiden. He's a good friend of mine. I do a lot of biking with him for a good cause, for supporting children, selecting money and collecting money for kids with cancer. So that's what we're doing. So that's a little bit about me. I'm a former musician. I will explain why former and why I don't do it anymore in a bit. I love going into the mountains and I love to have my work-life balance. Not everything is about work. Quick question I wanted to know. I know a few of you in here, Jonah, of course. I don't know you with the Norwegian t-shirt, but it was funny because I'm with Steve Fontil. I'm doing a festival now in the US. So he's a very good friend. So it's good to see somebody with that shirt in here. Is there musicians in here? All right. Managers? You. Some industry, the rest is just industry, label, promotion, or just interested people? Correct? Thank you. That makes me really happy because the presentation needed to target the people who are actually here, so I'm very happy about that. Yes, just to start with, this is me today. I'm owning 4 companies. It was always my dream to do that. One is situated in Switzerland. That's my management company. Then I have a label that is actually situated in Bergen, Norway. I'm owning Merch Care, which is a merchandise company of one of my friends that I merged with last year. And the 4th company is a distribution company in the US. That's where I am today. And we have like 25 to 30 employees worldwide on all the companies. And we're basically functioning like a major without being a major. So that is my dream, and I made that come true. It just took 35 years to come where I am now. So for me, it's important to explain how I got there. Probably I can inspire some of you and also learn some of you to be patient. That's what I learned. Being patient, having a lot of mentors on my way up, and also failing quite a lot on what I do. So how did I get there? A lot of people ask me that, even the newspaper that interviewed me, by the way, which was the first newspaper ever in Switzerland interviewing me, what I do after 40 years. Felt really good. So I started really early. That's me with my cousin over there. Typical, metalheads, independent, totally underground in the 80s. I was lucky enough to come into the industry really, really early. But it wasn't my goal because I was a really good soccer player. It's actually the truth. Not bragging or something, but I was in St. Gallen, after St. Gallen in the youth camp. And I had a horrible accident. It was not fun, and I suffered from it quite a lot. So I picked up the guitar because I was so fucking frustrated. I can't say it differently, excuse my words. And that's when I came to become a musician. I was really bad at it, self-taught, a little bit cocky, so I didn't take any lessons. I was like, I can do this myself. So I did that and started several bands, and I was in bands until 2006. Sold quite some records, we got big contracts, which I made a lot of mistakes with. So I'm not owning the rights to it, which I'll come back later and why I do what I do today. So even though it was a nice career, I don't earn money on my bands whatsoever. Of course, in Switzerland, when you grow up, everybody goes like, when you go like, hey, I'm a musician, the first question is, what's your job? So probably some of you know that. And that was the question I got all the time. Since I couldn't live of the music, it was really hard. And my dad was, he was a teacher. And it's really hard to oppose against your dad when he's a teacher saying like, my career is going to be a musician. He's going to like, no, you're not even 18. You're going to do schools. And that's what I did. So I did some schools, and from the early age on, it was always my thing to push things forward. I was always an entrepreneur. So when I started out having a regular job, I started out working in a travel agency because I was interested into traveling all my life. But funny enough, I didn't choose just one travel agency. I went to somebody that invented windsurfing travels. So funny enough, I could travel to Venezuela and to Philippines and everything in '92 to investigate these surf spots and create a brochure and sell these. Same with internet access. I don't think anyone remembers. It was the first internet company in Switzerland. While I was doing music, I was working there and being the head of sales and creating the whole sales department. So back then in '95, you actually had to buy access to the internet, and it cost 250 Swiss francs. Nobody can imagine that, but I sold these WLAN routers, and we developed them. And this company became afterwards what now is Sunrise, and I was merged into. It's actually Swiss. It should be Swisscom, actually. My fault. What became Swisscom IT, and within that company, my band was taking off. So I was like, I really don't want to work too long. I really want to do the music industry full time. So I was like, you know what? I'm doing the band. I have to work in Swisscom because I was responsible for, Swiss Lotto, the online platform for playing. That was my project, for example, or Fleur of Switzerland and stuff. These are things I've done by the end of the 90s and 2000, really, really early. So it was always in my blood to be like a little bit an entrepreneur. So that's why I started my own company in 1997. After having all my experience of how to combine things, and I saw, okay, I'd be smart. If I have a band, I want to talk about it, and I want to send them on tour, which also I learned from bands like New Roses because I was touring with them and all that in the 90s. So I did that, and everybody hated me for it. I went out and said, like, hey, you can't do this. Because every booker was a booker. Every magazine found me at a competition, and every other label was like, no, you can't be in a band, be your own label and do that. I tried, but I failed miserably because everybody hated me. And in 2000, I spent all the money I got from my granddad. He wasn't angry. I was, because it was his money. I paid it back later on. But yeah, that was my first entrepreneurship into the music industry where I totally failed. It was fun because back then, there was no iPhones. There was nothing. We drove around with maps and stuff like this, a label and shirts. When I ordered T-shirts, I called somebody in India, they produced it, and yeah, that's how it was. You can laugh, but that's how it was. And it cost a fortune. And there was one T-shirt company in Germany and also a pressing plant. So I went there, took my records, and then folded them myself and glued them. Stuff like this, it was impossible. So I spent a lot of time on things that I felt like would be fun but weren't. So I failed. In 2006. That was quite a milestone in my career because through my bands, I got to learn one of my mentors, which is some people know him, Brian Slagley, you know him. He's the owner of Metal Blade Records. Without him, a lot of things wouldn't be here. He was the first one. He discovered Metallica. So he put the first song spelled wrong on his compilation. So he wrote Metallica wrong, but the song was still on his compilation. So he was my mentor, and he saw what I wanted to do, and he said like, hey, why don't you come to work for me? But you can't do this in Switzerland. By then, I realized really fast that in Switzerland, I couldn't do what I wanted to. Nobody took me serious. Nobody wanted to do what I wanted to do. And I felt so lost in where I was as a person. So I said, okay, I'm quitting everything. So I quit the Swisscom job. So the boss from the Swisscom IT came put the contract on my table and was like, you have to stay here. It's a 30-year-long contract. You're going to stay until pension. This is the money you get. My mom was calling me going like, you're nuts. You have to take this. I was like, nope, I'm not doing that. I'm done with it. I did 3-4 jobs at the same time. This is what I want. I want to be a musician. I want to work in the music industry. But I couldn't do it in Switzerland. So I said, okay, I'm founding my own company. And I'm going outside. And I called Brian Slagley and said, like, I'm ready. I'm coming to Germany. I move over there. And I'm going to run whatever you want me to. So he hired me for several things, including restructuring the company a little bit, because I did my my BBA and economics and stuff. I studied that and marketing because I always thought that would be very important for me, whatever I do in the future, and it paid off. So that was my first job when I came in with my label experience and distribution and everything I did. That's what the job I got, and it was a blessing because I could work with bands like As I Lay Dying, I'm on the Moth, you probably know, the headline festivals here now. Good friends of mine, but I got into that project when, some of those bands wanted to break up because they didn't have success. I can tell you a quick story of one of the bands, very famous today. They sent in their record in 2006 and said, we're going to break up because we're only selling 25,000 records per year and all over the world, so we're breaking up. And they sent in the album, and there was one song on there where everybody in the office said, we're going to send this to radio. Unheard of back then. So we did it, and the record came out, and within a week they sold 25,000 records in Germany alone. So we had to call them and say, like, maybe you shouldn't break up. Just stay. So they did, and now, they're headlining festivals and stuff like that. I was also involved into expanding into the UK office, which was a very good experience for me because I felt very lonely in Germany being a Swiss guy. Luckily, I understood the language, and it was more or less, because it was in Swabia, it was more or less the same kind of social environment. It was a little bit more harsh than Switzerland, or we are as people. But that was always very important to me, that I fit in, that I can be myself and I'm being understood as a person as I am. So I went to the UK and set up the UK office. It was brilliant because in the 80s I was a lot in the UK. I was always flying there to buying my records and stuff because where else do you find records except for a store here? I think it was called Chamarico or something, I recall. So I went to Zurich or flew to England and built that. There was a really big learning curve for myself. It's like, how do you build a company in another country? What do you do? What is the legal things? What is going on? And at the same time, that's why it's in bold here, I met people from BMG Publishing. That was around 2008. And I'm still working with them, and the same person, and she's a good friend, and that's what networking does. So most of the people I met through the years, I'm still working together today. One of them is the head of the biggest booking agent in the US, outside Live Nation. He does Ghost and Sleep Token and all these bands that are big now. So a lot of people I met, they grew with me in the network, and I'm still working with them and call them my friends, which is a good thing. And then in 2009, I don't know if anyone knows Wardruna. They put out that album, and I was blown away because I haven't heard anything like it. The main guy in it is a genius, and he's one of my best friends today, and I'm very honored that he also became some kind of mentor the way he is as a person. He really inspired me a lot. Back then, I didn't know. I was just listening to the music and said, wow, this is great. And I was really tired of being in Germany and said, like, what do? Do I go back home? If I go back home, I will lose everything because there's nothing in Switzerland I can do. So I said, hey, our physical distributor, because back then, beginning of 2000s, a lot was still physical, and Spotify was rising. I just moved to Norway. It was cool because the distributor that distributed my records from a German label in Norway, they asked me if I could come and help them work on their label and internationalize their label. So I was like, why not? What I realized really fast is I can't speak the language. I'm a totally different social person than they are. Whoever spent a lot of time in Norway knows exactly what I'm speaking about. Everyone who is married, you don't see between Friday 2 o'clock and Monday 10 o'clock because they're in the mountains. And you have good friends until they get married, and then you have to ask the wife if they come out. Just little episodes of there. So, but it was fun. That's why I say, who the hell are you? I had a really hard time. But I didn't care because the thing I really wanted to do is I wanted to push forward. I always thought, I'm made for this. I can do it. And the good thing is, where I moved, in the same building, there was a DSP, DSPs, Believe, for example, or The Orchard, who services Spotify or Deezer. They were in the same house, and they were the first DSP who distributed music to Spotify, which was really young there. So for me, it was an extremely good opportunity to learn about digital distribution. How does it work? I could even look into programming. How does this work? And back then, Spotify was completely different. So everyone in Spotify were my friends up there. So it was really cool. I could just call somebody and say, like, hey, I'm releasing this. Could you just place it there? And they were like, yep. So that's how, if you look on Spotify, Northern Spirits, that playlist that is on there was created because of that. I called a guy at Spotify and said, let's do something for Nordic music. I really like Nordic music. He was like, all right, created a playlist. Unheard of today. Doesn't happen anymore. But it was a fun time back then. And I also realized, like you can see above, everything is a marathon and not a sprint. I learned extremely fast that, hey, I'm here doing it 20 years, but I'm not really good at managing bands. I made so many mistakes because I didn't really know all the aspects of what this actually means. Because if you're a manager, you have two jobs. You run your own company and you're hired by another band or a musician or what it is to run their company. And that ability to understand that when you're management is gold. Because there's a lot of responsibility coming for it. So you're responsible for their lives, their incomes, and you're responsible for your own, which I don't know many jobs of if you go to any regular, at Swisscom, for example, like I was. You have one job. That's a little bit different in management. And I learned this really fast here that I don't know nothing, especially with the change of the industry and all the digital world coming in. I was like, I thought that would be so good. So I said, okay, I postpone everything management. I stop it. I'm not good. I need to learn. So the only thing I did is what I posted this from 2010 with my company. I did research for 3 years. I was only going into the DSP world, tech world, seeing how does this develop? What does it mean if Norway was the first country that has 90% digital, everybody else is in the physical world? How do I need to sell this? What do I do with my artists? And I also went into a university and started teaching for different organizations, because in Norway, what I liked about Norway is music industry is embedded into their society. It's the third biggest export that they have besides fish and oil. So that you felt, even black metal, they're really proud on it, they love it, and they support it. And for me, going up there, being like, whoa, everybody shakes my hand, nobody asks for a second job, respects me for what I am. I was like, wow, this is paradise. This is really cool. That's why I thought it's good for me to invest and give back and learn before I do what I actually wanted to do. So yeah, and I became the project manager of Wardruna's second album, called Yggdrasil. Helvegen is probably their most famous song, and it played a big role in what comes afterwards, which I come to afterwards. And then I went to Japan. You see me here sitting Japanese. I did a lot, like 6 times I went to Japan because I was nerding out about Japan and said, like, I want to crack that market. I want to know how this works. Unfortunately, 6 times I was there, I did 1 license on the label, and I fucked up 5 times by speaking to the wrong person and handing out the wrong business card to the wrong person. So I gave up. It's like, all right, it was a nice trip. And luckily enough, in the Nordic regions, these trips were all paid by the export offices. So the Swedish, all the Nordic export offices, they have a lot of funds where they support people, industry and bands to do things, which was great. But I felt bad because they gave me money. So I went on and said, like, I want to sit with Einar, who is the owner of Wardruna today. He came to me with that picture and said, this is what I want. And then I realized there's people out there that really says everything starts with a vision, and I stick to it. I do nothing else. I stick to that. And it was so simple to me. It's like, whoa, I did all these things. I did everything, but that guy comes out of the woods after 6 years of doing a record with instruments that he did himself, doing music that nobody ever heard of before, and just says, like, I'm going to do this. I was very impressed. When the second record came out, I was even more impressed by the way he did it and the way his persistence was. So I was very happy to be with him and to be on board. And we realized really fast that even though we're different cultures, we have a lot of things in common. Our belief system, what we are, who we are, what we stand for. And that changed my view on things quite a lot. So today, when I say where I am, everyone that works in my company and everyone I'm with is 100% belief in. If I don't feel it, I don't do it. I just got an offer from a band to be managed, quite big. I said no. I only do things that I feel right with. I don't really care about the money, because money doesn't drive me. It doesn't drive my businesses, nothing. What drives me is the purpose of what this company is for. So if I'm a manager, I need to see that we create the best possible product that we can, the best music, the best look, the best everything. If I focus on that, everything else will come. And that guy showed me exactly how to do that. So in 2013, when I said, okay, I only want to do this. So I sat with him. I founded my company, or my vision that was founded basically on his thought. Was like, I'm going back to 1997, but this time I want to have a management. I want to have a D2C. I want to have my own web shop set up, and I want to have my own distro. Because I learned through my bands losing everything, if I offer this to bands, they will be safe. So I developed the D2C system in the US that actually gives everyone who wants to access to how they sell stuff, how to money, to everything. So it's total CISO system that we did in 2015, and the distro system we set up ourselves. I went to Sony and said, like, look, you only care about the big ones. I want to take the smaller bands so they can work with me, and we put it under the umbrella. At the same time, we got a call from Canada, from History Channel. It's like, well, we would love to have music on Vikings. I don't know if somebody remembers Vikings, a TV series. It was total shit, let's be honest. It was bad. And I was happy he called, because Einar is not only creating this music, but he studied runes, and he's one of the most knowledgeable Nordic person that I know. So, of course, they called him also to suck out his knowledge of how to do things better. So we got involved, and Helvegen was one of the songs that was actually licensed for this TV series. And they understand really early that, oh, okay, we should probably work more with him, because he knows more than we do about this, because we're from Canada. So we know the commercial side of things, but we don't know the content of things. So for us, it was great. We were flying to LA, and it was like, whoa, what is this? Didn't really realize, the capacity of things or anything. It was just over our heads, living in Norway. So we continued with our things, and at the same time, I'd See Your Blood, that was coming back to the Norwegian state. At the same time as Vikings came, the state of Norway came and said, like, we have 300 years. We want you guys to do something special for it. We're like, whoa, the state comes and pays us money to do our music and to do whatever we want. It was great. So a colleague of mine put that up. It was called I'd See Your Blood, and we just put our bands in there and made separate concerts and fusioned those bands. We didn't know what came out, but it was received really well. By then, it was a really great concept, and like I said, I did D2C and also worked for the Norwegian export office, because they saw what we did the year before. They were like, I offer you a job. You come to my office, and the only thing I want you to do is trying to have our industry people in Norway fly to festivals to see what can they do there. So I did, because I knew the people from many, many festivals. Still do. Also friends that I grew up with, like Summer Breeze or Hellfest. The owner from Hellfest, he grew up with me. He booked my band when his festivals was 50 people or something. I drove through France. It was terrible. But yeah, he's a great guy. So why I'm saying I come back to this, what network does. But yeah, and then, I was really focused on my world, saying like, this is it. I'm not from Norway, but this is it. I feel connected. I am that kind of person. I found my purpose after years. But then I went like, hey, there's Rocket Session. It's even on Facebook still, what we did. It's a Swiss brand that I, with Fabrice, he was involved into Inferno Switzerland, came up with. It was an idea of doing a festival and interactive things, a little bit different, like inviting school kids to have sessions with bands, which happened. And I also did a comic. One of my best friends in the UK came and said, like, I have this brilliant idea. I want to do a comic, and I'm going to do a band exactly looking like the comics. I was like, good, that's a great idea. Unfortunately, I completely failed at both because I lost focus. I wasn't focused on what I really like to do. I was just tempted because I saw the money. And as I said before, that's what I learned most and foremost. If I start focusing on money and not what I am about and what I want to do, it fails. So I failed miserably. Everything went to hell, and I felt really bad. So there were quite some talks involved with these people, but yeah, they're still my friends, so it wasn't too bad. Then in 2015, that was the year, I just sum up in this, because IT became a festival that is still around in Norway. I'm not involved into it anymore, but at the beginning I was involved, and I invited all my network to come, just to make the festival popular. And then I founded m4music because I made my vision true, and by North, a label. It was not only a label, it was an idea. When you saw what we learned, it was like, how can you put that whole universe under one brand and do everything ourselves? And Einar from Wardruna and Eva from another band that I met at IT, they were like, let's found a label together. We do everything ourselves. We can do it better because we understand our music better than anyone else. Everyone else will just look at the figures and sell it, but we sell a feeling, an identity. And that's what we did. And at the same time, Vikings called again and said, like, hey, we want him as an actor, and he should also sing and do stuff in the episode. We're like, it's a bit cringe, but hey, let's do it. So he did the music, and we quit afterwards. But it was really great. It was really great seeing him there. And we had a show last week at the Royal Albert Hall in the UK. And Mr. Rollo, he was there. So most of the actors are still friends and are coming to our shows and stuff. So it's, again, a really cool network and really cool people that we earned or learned through that kind of setup. So this year changed a lot for me, and I learned through my failures, focus. If you focus, it will expand. But you need to be patient. In most things, you need to be patient. You saw my career, we're only in 2015, and I'm still not there. So then I moved home, because I didn't feel home anymore in Norway. At the same time, I felt I've done things that I can do in that country. And I was lacking something. You can imagine when you move somewhere, especially for me, I wrote like 80 pages about this. When you move somewhere, you're not home. You're doing this for your kids or for somebody else, but you will never be home because you have not grown up there. You don't speak the language by heart. Norwegians, is they drink 2 beers. It's really hard to understand them, even if you studied Norwegian like I did. I speak Norwegian fluently now, but I just didn't feel it. So I sat with Einar and Eva and said, like, look, guys, they were like, you don't need to say, just move back. And as soon as I did this and went back where I grew up with all my backpack of what I know and how I want to do things, it exploded. It was something completely else. So I stayed completely true to myself and said, like, okay, it can go either totally sideways or it can totally blossom. But I'm not focusing on sideways. You will see there's always a plan A. I don't care about plan B. There's only a plan A. So I flew home. And of course, I took over the full management then. It took 3 years for Einar to let go and say, like, okay, you can do it now. Which was the biggest band. I have some other bands that were successful, but I will focus on this to explain what we did. And with my experience from the 90s, having a booking agent and everything, I was like, I called him and said, like, you have never played a live show. We did all this TV stuff, and we never played a live show. I'm going to book your tour. He was like, yeah, sure. So I did it and booked the tour. It sold out within 1 day, and I was like, I'm being cocky then, and said, like, we're going to 800 venues. Everything was sold out within a second, and we sold so much merchandise that he could actually live half a year of it. It was crazy. So we did that, and then on the back of that, of course, I told him, hey, now that we have our own label, keep back your record. We're going to release it ourselves. Now that we have the TV and everything, let's do it. So we did. It became quite a success. It was on the Billboard charts. It was in Canada in the charts. It was everywhere. It was #1 for weeks in the world music charts. It was very cool to see that. And I was actually able, for the first time, to hire somebody in Switzerland. Actually, that person, she's not here today, but she's with me today, and she hired herself. I was at the festival. She just came and said, like, I'm going to work for you. I loved it because my purpose was always, and excuse to the male people in here, but I had made very bad experience, and I don't like the machoism within our industry, especially in the metal scene and alternative. So for me, it became very obvious that I want to work with female people in our industry, and I want to push it. And to this day, I only have female employees. And that will carry us as far that I want to give my company to them. That's what I want. Because it's still a hierarchy, you know, I'm owning it, so I'm still a male guy. So I want to give it on to them. I want to give the power to them. And that's what dawned in those ages, that's what I want to do with how I want to go forward. And I did this crazy event. I just called some people in London because we had all these connections in London, you know, with journalists and everything. I was like, hey, I want to take over London. Let's just do it. We have some famous band here. We're just going to book 4 different venues. One is going to be a spoken word venue. One is going to be, we do like 3 different sets, and then there's Wardruna and everything. So we did that and had some support, and also the embassy and the ambassador from Norway, he really liked the idea. Everybody else was like, you're nuts. I was like, yeah, I am. It worked out perfectly. It was a big success. Everything sold out. And because of that, a lot of other artists came to my fold that really fitted. And then 2017, basically this happened and I was burned out. I had so much success, and the first employee and you know, in Switzerland, but I had employees in the US, accountants and everywhere to make it happen. But I couldn't do it anymore. I was burned out. It was 3-4 years of just not sleeping. So I was done. So my brain exploded, even though I went to Japan again. We did the tour, we found the binaural, the Billboard charts, everything was like, everybody was like, hey man, you did it. I was like, no, I didn't. I did something wrong because I'm burned out. So I didn't know what to do. So I took a break and said, if I can take care of myself, how am I able to take care of anyone else? How is this possible? So I started to take care of myself and changed on how I looked at things. Like I said, I never really cared about money. I went bankrupt several times. For me, it's always about what comes out of my heart. Like music, you know, it's something that comes from your heart. You just pick an instrument to express what you have, but it's something that comes from your heart. So intellectual property is basically somebody gives a prize on your heart. So the same for me, that's my intellectual property. So what price do I give that? What value do I give it? Is it working myself to death for others, or is it taking care of myself so I can develop further? And that's what I did. So I did the rebranding and focused on things that I never did before with a friend here in Zurich. He helped me on it, and it was really, really healthy. And all my clients understood. So they took things in their hands, and Melanie, her name is, she did a lot during that time. And I realized that without a team, I'm not going anywhere. So if I have money or not doesn't really care. I don't really care. If I have money, I just spend it on somebody else, and that's what I did. So I started forming a team. I looked at what purpose do I need to have fulfilled? What people do actually fit into my world? And so we started doing that, and that's what we did in between 2018 and 20. I just hired a lot of people, the right people for the right situations. Luckily, I was able to find that. I gave everything out to booking agents. I didn't book things myself anymore beginning 2018. I did the management startup in Switzerland. Like Jonah's band came on board here for Switzerland. I was like, ooh, a Swiss band. And we worked together since then because he was in the underground in the same world as me. So we fit value-wise very good together. And of course, Assassin's Creed came. Nobody knew that this comes our way, but it was quite something. So we did that, which was a little bit a bummer because I was working with several artists on albums. So when this comes, you have to drop everything because it's like at the Wall Street, you know. You get a call and you have to do it within 24 hours or you're out. So we did that, and through the employees and everything, it's the first time I had to think like, okay, now my education comes in. So I need to start looking what is cash flow, what is net win. Can I probably pay a little bit more to myself finally? So I did that, and it came out really great. And then COVID came. But the way I am, you know, I'm never focusing on the negative. So that's the good thing about the environment overall. We're always looking at the opportunity. If something happens, it's like, okay, what can we do? What is in our power? You know, focus on what you can do, not what you can't influence. So we did that. And it was very important for me, first and foremost, to see with the employees that I hired or the people in my surroundings, being agents and everything, who, had the same problem as me, not earning money. How are you doing? How do I get through with this? How can I take them with? How can we share things so that when this is over, we're still there? That was one of my main things I did during that, while working on several records. And one of them was the new Wardruna record, which was supposed to come out on 4th of June 2020. Of course, it had to be postponed, and it was planned with Sony Music. We signed to Sony Music then, but I didn't sign anything. I just told Sony what I need from them. It was a long discussion, but they agreed. So all the rights remained with us. We just used some kind of, what they could bring in. So it fell through. We had to postpone, of course. But I was like, no, we can't do this. This is really bad for the fans. So I called Anna and said, like, hey, I just want something out on 4th of June because everybody's feeling bad and nobody's happy. And he was like, yeah, I worked on this song. It's called Healing Mountain. I was like, do it. And we're going to release it on the same day as the album actually came out. So we did. And it became one of the most streamed single ever. And there's like 80 million views now on YouTube, and did really well. And I did a lot of streaming, and I built my own platform to sell tickets. So meaning that, I had my own ticketing service, basically. So we sold the tickets for our online shows ourselves. And just a comparison, Wardruna, we did a show, and we did way over 100,000 euros just in one evening. And that's not merch. So that helped a lot to create a healthy environment and to make people like, ooh, okay, we can go through this. And again, I went back to networking. But I went back to the people that I really care about. I couldn't do much for those I don't know, but I could take care of those I know. And that was a brilliant time for me, even though COVID times sucked. But the dialogue with my people, my network, and also having a dialogue with the cultural institution, especially in Thurgau, to explain them what the value of the music industry is or what I bring to the table, was a very healthy dialogue to have with people that before either were really burned out and didn't know how to continue or had no clue of what we're doing. And of course, I got married during that time and adopted a dog, and we're still involved into a lot of dog care in Romania, which is one of my things. And we released Wietrafen finally and had extremely big success, even #1 in Austria, #2 in Germany on the official charts. So it broke through in 2021. So we did our things and prepared all this for 2023 and said, like, I went to them and said, like, hey, nobody really understands what we're doing with our Nordic myths and all this stuff. Let's just create our own festival. Fuck it. We're going to find the right people and we do it ourselves. So we did. So I hired a castle somewhere on an island in Sweden. Everybody was again like, you're nuts. Who is going there? There's no flights there. There's nothing. I was like, it's got to be fine. So we did it, and it was actually fine. It was really cool. And we got invited to play the Herodion at the Acropolis. We were always, for me, the cultural aspect of things within music is very, very strong. So we also, during COVID, we were invited to play the World Heritage in Pula. But we couldn't do it because of COVID. So that call came on 23rd of May. I remember because, it was quite something. And then the tickets went online in June, and the show was actually in September. And we're like, how do we sell 4,500 tickets? I didn't realize how fast it goes. There were so many people flying all over the planet coming there. And then we filmed it, and it's available now and everything. It was such an event, and we did a pop-up store in Greece. So I went to a record store owner, first time ever, and said, like, hey, I'm going to rent your record store. You're going to earn 20% of everything. I don't care. Just let's have an outlet there and do that. It was really amazing. There were over 1,000 people at the merchandise store the day after the show. It was really amazing. That community that came with it after, this time of depression and then a lot of people that weren't happy was great to see with all these events. And I was also lucky to work on the label side with some Sami artists, because that is something I really care about too, beside, sexism, racism, and all this shit that has no place here. For me, it's very important to to shed light on people that actually minorities that suffer. And Sami are very much suffering because nobody is owning land anymore. The Norwegian government took it away and paid them a little bit of money to it. So it was very important for me to have Mari Boine, which is the biggest Sami artist. That changed my picture on things a lot. She's over 60, and talking to her, I was impressed. It was so great to have somebody like this with us. And then in 2024, I was tired of doing all the merchandise myself, so I called a friend that I knew and said, like, let's merge our companies because that also gives us a little bit more power, less on my table. So I did that. He said, like, you're crazy giving out everything that you built to me. I was like, no, I know what you're going to do right. It's all going to be fine. We just do it. So we did, and it turned out really great, and I'm really happy he does it. He's still one of my best friends. We didn't fight. Everything is going really well. We signed some new acts that probably people don't found. Probably somebody knows they were on a major and also on TV and Fernsehgarten and all these things. And Geria, I just took them as an example. They're a young band from Portugal. They're just changing the scene right now. And next year it will be quite a year. It's fun to know when you're behind the scene what is going to happen the next 3 years when nobody knows. I love that. So yeah, that brings me to today. We released another album by Wardruna. Got really well received, charts again all over. We played the Royal Albert Hall, if you know. That was always a dream for me from the beginning. And we played Pompeii. We were invited to play Pompeii like Pink Floyd, which, I never dreamed of when I started this. But, when you get this, it's not about the money. You lose money if you do this. It's what your dreams are. Yeah? We're going to cope with anything else. Probably sell some merchandise or something. But just having the crew and my bands being happy and just seeing the crew being able to walk around in these kind of environments for like 2 days and flying home and being so happy, that's a lot of payment for me. And as you can see, there's really a lot going on, and that's why I probably understand why there's such a big setup meanwhile all over the planet, and most of my employees are international and with all the tours worldwide. And especially also very proud on Jonas' band, Colgans, playing here after long work, and you can see, but nice world tour, including Mexico. And yesterday a documentary was streamed on RTS, which is quite a success for a Swiss underground band to be on TV. So dreams can come true, and you just need to be persistent on what you want to do. And a little bit about me, like I said, it's the first time I was ever in a newspaper. I was so proud. I didn't say, but I was a little bit proud, I had to say. Especially because my mom called. Yeah, my mom was also the one that threw me out in the 90s because I did piercings and all that stuff. I flew to Amsterdam to do piercings and tattoos and all these. She was like, get the fuck out. But now she's the one calling. I'm so proud of you. So I'm happy about that. So that's what I wanted to tell you. I wanted to inspire a little bit and see that dreams really can come true if you just be persistent. If you keep on what you want to do, if you keep on to your dreams. There is lows. There is times where I needed to call my mom and say, like, I need money to buy food. But it's all worth it. It's really all worth it as long as you keep to yourself and keep true to yourself. This here is the last picture I want to show. This is a book I still have. I write all my ideas in there still. I carry it with me, not today, but usually when I travel, I carry it with me, and every idea I have, I write in there. I think 989 are shit, but 2 are really good. But it's good to remind yourself, that you can go back and say, like, oh, okay, I thought about this and this and this already, but no, it didn't work. So I really like that and encourage people to take notes about life and what you do, because, our brain, it just forgets things. And sometimes, when I did the presentation here and was invited to do this, when I went through 2015 and saw just these pictures again, with Einar being in the movie and having that festival, I was like, whoa, I was brought back there, and I called friends from the UK that I invited to the festival and said, like, remember this? And when we did that. So I encourage everyone to do that, and don't forget your past. It doesn't define your future, but it gives you input on what you can do. So thank you very much for listening, and everyone for being here. And there's another panel coming now with some of my colleagues where we discuss things a little bit deeper on a different level. So I hope you stick around, and thank you for listening. And good luck with your future, really. Thank you.